Hey everybody, welcome to the briefing room on this Monday. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Great to have you with us. A big day on Wall Street ahead. We'll get into what these swings from the Chinese trade war mean for your pocketbook coming up. We'll also talk about the situation developing in the Persian Gulf with Iran. And also today, talking about some big developments on the 2020 campaign trail with respect to climate change. So stay tuned for that. But leading off right now, we're looking at the markets today. They're once again giving all of us a scare. Anybody with a retirement plan, 401k, you don't want to look. It is down big again today. This, as the Chinese just a short time ago announced that they're going to retaliate against President Trump and the United States after he ratcheted up tariffs in this escalating tit for tat now on billions of dollars of goods that trade between both countries, popular goods. All of us could soon pay higher prices for those goods. We'll get into that right now with two of our guests and also how it's impacting their businesses. We're joined now by Michelle Jones. She's a farmer in South Central Montana. Great to see you, Michelle. Also joined by Tiffany Williams, a luggage shop owner in Lubbock, Texas. She will tell us about how this is all impacting her business. But let's start with Michelle, since so much of this fight is over agricultural products. Michelle, how concerned are you now that the Chinese just today have vowed to increase to 25% these tariffs on so many goods that you're exporting overseas?
Yes, it's certainly a concern to see agriculture goods on the retaliatory tariff list. And I haven't seen the full list already, but we're already subject to tariffs on both the goods that we export as well as some of our input costs that we import out of China. So it is definitely a concern to see escalation in these tariffs.
And you raise wheat, barley, corn, alfalfa, and some cows, I understand, out there in Montana, 4 generations farming. How difficult is this stretch for you right now? Put this into context for us. I mean, farmers always experience ups and downs financially with the seasons, the weather. Is this been dramatically different?
Yeah, this has been similar to a lot of the other economic downturns. There's certainly been, a number of them in agriculture that you'd mentioned, but this one has started to get incredibly difficult because there's really no end in sight, and it's certainly something that is out of our control. And these tariffs have certainly added to other issues that we already had with excess supply, and hurting our export markets and decreasing our export demand has definitely exacerbated a lot of the issues in agriculture and made for some very, very tough financial conditions.
And Tiffany Williams, a small business owner in Texas, you've also talked about some very difficult financial conditions for your business. Talk to us about how the tariffs have impacted you.
Well, for us, luggage, all backpacks, all briefcases, and most travel accessories are included on the current tariff list. So we were already, 85% of what's in our store currently is on the tariff list. So, it has affected us, especially for our higher end luggage and the things that we, really enjoy selling day in, day out, and also affecting how much discretionary income the consumer has to spend. So we've seen, a drop in our business this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with the tariffs.
And that is, just to break it down for people just a little bit more simple, it is more expensive for you now to import the product from China, which in turn then takes a big gouge out of your profit margin, right, when you're turning that around and selling it to Americans in Texas?
Correct. Well, it's probably technically our manufacturers. We purchase our luggage from manufacturers who are directly importing the goods. So we're just seeing it more on the pricing side, because we need to match that pricing. So we are seeing it more on a price increase on what we're selling versus seeing it at that level because we don't directly import it ourselves.
And the president today, ladies, has been talking about these tariffs. In fact, speaking specifically about farmers a short time ago in the Oval Office. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We love our farmers. We take care of our farmers. Our farmers have been incredible. No country can get in the way of our farmers. Our farmers are great patriots, and they've done a fantastic job. So our farmers are going to be very well taken care of.
Michelle, back to you on this. The president has allocated $12 billion in aid to farmers. Have you felt any of that help? What do you make of his comments?
Well, there was certainly some aid that was sent out last fiscal year, that had benefits for farmers. Unfortunately, it doesn't begin to scratch the surface of the market losses that we have seen, and it will be very difficult for any aid package this year to make us whole again for the amount of export market that we have lost. And so that's been one of the main problems, is our waning export demand and some of the damage that we have done to our export markets. And that will definitely be something that will have to take some time, certainly take years to recover.
And Tiffany, to you on this, as this continues, and there really isn't an end in sight. The negotiations, as I'm sure you've been following, kind of go back and forth, but the tariffs keep going up. I mean, do you have kind of like a drop dead point as you're looking at this, where it's just going to get too tough, where it's just simply unbearable, even more than it is right now?
Well, I think it's just been so concerning, because it seemed like we were nearing a resolution. At least, the media, the things that we heard coming into this week were positive, and we thought we were moving in a positive direction. So it's definitely made for a lot of uncertainty, what the rest of the year looks like and how that's going to affect us, especially with them going up to 25%. It's yet to know how our manufacturers are going to respond to that and what the pricing is going to look like. But I would assume, the prices will go up on some of our goods, and we don't know how the consumer is going to respond to that.
And do you hold, Tiffany, is there a political cost here in your view in the communities and industry groups that you participate in? Texas is obviously a very red state. Are people sort of taking this out on the administration in your circles, or is there still a good bit of patience?
I think there's a good bit of patience. We all want the end results of this to be trade policies with China that are enforceable and help with the issues that we've been having in that. So we certainly support the administration's efforts to be tough on China and to get those things done. But what's difficult for us is when you place those tariffs on American consumers. We would love to see a way to bring a resolution to this that didn't include tariffs and didn't directly affect the consumer and affect small businesses like myself.
Yeah, and Michelle Jones, the farmer out in Montana, what is your message to the administration as they continue these negotiations with the Chinese? What do you want them to know from you?
I think it's certainly similar to what Tiffany just mentioned, is that, we're supportive of ensuring that China is a good trade partner and that we can normalize that relationship going forward, and that we certainly eliminate all of these increased tariff barriers and tariffs that are negatively impacting our markets, as well as some of our input costs. And we certainly encourage a swift resolution to these current trade negotiations.
And we will see how quickly they resolve themselves. We know some talks underway coming up at the G20 between President Trump and Chinese President Xi in the next couple of weeks. So we'll watch that very closely. Michelle Jones, farmer in Montana, appreciate your time very much. And Tiffany Williams, small business owner in Lubbock, Texas, thank you so much for your time and for coming on. Appreciate you both. Shifting gears now over to the Middle East and those escalating tensions with Iran, a situation that's also impacting the markets today and those oil prices. The president weighing in on the threat from Iran a short time ago. Take a listen.
We'll see what happens with Iran. If they do anything, it will be a very bad mistake if they do anything. I'm hearing little stories about Iran. If they do anything, they will suffer greatly. We'll see what happens with Iran.
All right, they will suffer greatly. So a threat we've heard before. Terry Moran, our senior national correspondent, is here. Terry, so how close are? It sort of smells like we're getting pretty close to some sort of a conflict.
It does, doesn't it? It's kind of step by step, this escalating tension on both sides. So what happened here was over the weekend at some point, 2 Saudi oil tankers were apparently damage, significant damage, the Saudis say. They say it's sabotage. Also, a Norwegian ship was damaged. The Saudis haven't offered any evidence of the damage or evidence of how it might have been caused. The Norwegian ship did show some damage under the waterline. Neither ship sank. There was no oil spill or anything like that. But this comes at the exact moment of these rising tensions. You might remember last week the United States, under President Trump's orders, sent an aircraft carrier group and B-2 bombers over to the Middle East, and that was in response to Iran's escalating of tensions. It's proxy war through Hezbollah against Israel. What you see is the chess game getting very tense in the Middle East. Donald Trump came to power and told his advisors specifically, no more wars. He has surrounded himself, however, with people who are very hawkish, especially when it comes to Iran, a position that he shares. So while the war is obviously not in the offing, it's one of those situations which is just a tinderbox that could blow at any minute, and this shows how things are heating up.
Yeah, he also talked about taking a much harder line against Iran as well, and they do have a history, Terry, right? I mean, you followed this stuff from your years in the region of Iran, sort of, and we don't know if Iran was behind these ship attacks yet, we should say, but they do have a history of those sort of one-off, little hits that have either been funded by rebel groups or other kind of supporters of Iran. No fingerprints.
Right, exactly. This comes through the Strait of Hormuz, through the Persian Gulf, where 40% of the world's oil comes through. On one side is Iran. That's their strategic advantage in the world. Think of it. Iran is standing against the United States, the most powerful country in the world now for decades. That choke point is one of their strategic advantages, and they know it. They have been severely warned that if they ever cut it off, that would mean war, but they kind of tiptoe up. They've got these proxy groups. Now, we should say not only has no blame been assigned to Iran, once again, there is no actual evidence that there was an act of sabotage here. And we have seen how in other wars in the Middle East, war has happened through false information and sometimes misinformation.
So a lot of investigation to be done on that specific episode. But bottom line, though, any sort of tension or disruption in the Gulf and in that strait has an effect on oil prices.
We're looking at an oil market which is already very tight. Venezuela's out of it. Iranian oil now out of it. The United States saying they will allow no more waivers of its sanctions. And so right now oil prices are hot upward pressure on them. If, in fact, there was some kind of confrontation between the United States and Iran, you could see, well, the only person in the world who would be really happy about that, aside from the sheikhs in the Middle East, is Vladimir Putin, who produces a lot of oil.
He sure does make a lot of oil. Terry Moran, thanks so much. We'll see you on World News Tonight. So what does all of this disruption in the Gulf mean for you? What does it mean for your bottom line? We would like to bring in now an expert, Bola Sekunbi. She's a certified financial education instructor, also the founder of Clever Girl Finance, for some tips on what to make sense of this market shake up today on all of this foreign news. Bola, it's great to see you. So what do you tell people really unnerved by the market the past week or so and what they're seeing today over on Wall Street?
So basically, all these different issues going on with the China trade wars, the Iran oil sanctions, et cetera, they have a direct impact on your pockets, because what's happening is that while the cost of goods are going to go up or potentially will go up as a result of these issues, your income is not going up in direct proportion to what's happening, right? So that means when you're purchasing these imported goods or you're going to the gas pump to purchase gas, it could potentially be costing you more money. And so it's really important that you have a good understanding of your financial picture so you can start to navigate through these issues in your own personal economy.
And when tariffs we keep hearing will hurt people, I think it's difficult for a lot of us to actually draw that line from these sort of these theoretical tariffs out there on Chinese goods, and then what we see when we go to Kmart or Target. How soon do you think the prices will actually start to go up on some of these goods that are being brought in from China?
I mean, it really depends on how the manufacturers are feeling, the level of impact that they're experiencing, and also how soon this inventory that's currently existing needs to be replenished. And so we could see it very quickly prices start to go up in the stores or at the gas pump.
And how can all of us then minimize the damage and protect ourselves from all of these tariffs?
So like I said, it's really having a clear picture of your finances, right? You have to bring it down to your personal economy because, like I said, your incomes are not going up in proportion to the way the cost of these goods might be going up. So the first thing you want to do is, start to budget. And it's basically giving yourself a plan for your money, creating a spending plan, and looking at what areas you might need to cut back on. That's really important because you want to be able to stretch your dollar in this type of situation. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that when economies start to get tight, you want to have a fallback plan, right? So essentially, you need to have some sort of emergency savings in place. And if you don't have that, this is a great time to start contributing amounts towards a bank account to help you weather an unplanned life situation when, things are more expensive and you don't have that much free money to spend. If you have high interest debt, high interest credit card debt, this is a great time to focus on paying that debt down so that you can start to take the money from that debt repayment once that's done and start to focus it on your other financial priorities like saving or investing. And it's also important that you keep your long-term objectives in mind. So a lot of people are panicking because of what they're seeing going on in the stock market, right? However, these are short-term situations that are happening, and potentially you're investing for the long term. So if you have 20, 30 years to retirement, then this is probably just a blip and you don't have to panic. So don't go out cashing out on all your stocks or selling everything that you've invested in because of what's going on in the economy right now. And then finally, I would say that you want to start thinking about ways to increase your income, right? So it could be looking for a better paying job, getting a part-time job, going through things in your house that you don't need and listing them online on platforms like eBay to get some additional income in. And then you can repurpose those funds to paying down debt or bulking up your emergency savings.
Smart advice all around, even when we're not in a scary time on the markets, for sure. But also a good reminder, Bola, that some of that pain in our retirement and investment accounts is not actually felt until we sell. So just hang on, fasten the seatbelt, and wait it out. Appreciate that advice and all that good stuff. Bola Sokunbi, founder of Clever Girl Finance. Great to see you, Bola. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, turning now to the race for 2020, and former Vice President Joe Biden on the trail today, making his first trip as a candidate to the first in the nation primary state of New Hampshire. He's talking about climate change, teasing a big plan that is on the way. A short time ago, I caught up with our campaign reporter, Chris Donato, who's up there with Joe Biden.
Hey, Devin. So Biden just made his first appearance in New Hampshire as a presidential candidate. He promised to talk about his climate change proposal more in detail later this month in a speech, but he did discuss a few things. He said he's going to lay out his whole plan later this month, calling it an environmental revolution. He says he's one of the forefront leaders in climate change, talking about it since 1987, but he's drawing a little criticism because while he may have been a forefront since 1987, he's one of the last candidates actually to be talking about it and releasing a plan. Many other candidates have released their climate change plans. He wants to kind of bring it back to an Obama era, talking about the Paris Climate Accord, and even wants to see solar panels or electric car chargers along every highway in America.
All right, so the former vice president, our thanks to Chris there, the former vice president teasing a big plan. A bit of a throwback to the Obama days, certainly not an embrace of the Green New Deal. Our Stephanie Ebbs is our environmental reporter. She joins us to dig into this now. Also joined from New York by Avery Harper. She's another one of our new campaign reporters. Avery, great to see you. Let's start with you. Avery, you are covering the campaign, covering Joe Biden, some of the other Democrats. How is the former vice president, the front runner's climate change plan being received?
Well, in a field of Democratic candidates that is as wide as the Democratic field, all of these candidates are looking for ways to differentiate themselves from each other. And a recent Reuters report gave some Democrats the opportunity to do just that. They called Biden's plan middle of the road. And so we saw immediately some of those candidates come out and say and criticize that plan. We saw Bernie Sanders tweet that there is no middle ground when it comes to climate policy. Washington State Governor Jay Inslee said we cannot simply go back to the past. And this is all because of what Biden's plan might say. We do know that he is expected to release a plan before the end of the month.
Yeah, middle of the road is probably not a slogan that will go over well with a lot of those progressive groups, Stephanie, that you're covering, environmental groups. They want far to the left on environmental policy.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are really seizing on this moment where climate change is such a big part of the presidential debate. You know, they are pushing for, similar to the Green New Deal, the most ambitious possible solutions, because kind of similar to the road metaphor.
So who are these groups? These are Sierra Club.
Sierra Club, the League of Conservation Voters is one that's been around for a long time. And you have these kind of coming up grassroots groups, specifically of young people, like the Sunrise Movement.
Yeah, they were tweeting about Joe Biden's plan. Just as Avery was saying, it's not actually out in details. Take a look. This is from one of the Sunrise Movement founders who tweeted just overnight here that Joe Biden's middle ground will drown entire communities forever, set vast swaths of our country ablaze, kill millions of species, tear apart the fabric of our economy. My generation doesn't have luxury or privilege of middle ground. Whew, yeah. Avery Harper, that is not something that that I know that Joe Biden will take lightly. He'll probably come out swinging against that criticism, won't he?
Definitely. This is an issue that the Biden campaign is going to have to tread very carefully in order to capture the progressive part of the party. We've seen some of the other candidates like Beto O'Rourke. He's come out with a $5 trillion plan proposal to combat climate change. He's talking about taxing the rich in order to invest in technology to get to net zero emissions by 2050. Jay Inslee, again, he wants to reduce carbon emissions by 45% by 2030. He wants to put forth clean energy standards in electricity, new vehicles, and new buildings in order to get there. This is a field that has embraced the Green New Deal. Many have refused contributions from fossil fuel companies and their executives. And so, again, climate change is definitely going to be an issue that people are going to be watching Biden for.
Yeah, and a lot of money in this Democratic primary is up for grabs in the climate primary.
And that's something that Republicans will grab onto right away. It's the source of funding that some have even called out people of both parties for receiving money from fossil fuels.
But a number of these groups that you're
are
looking
already, throwing out money. The League of Conservation Voters announced a $2 million effort to pressure candidates to talk about climate change, release what they call ambitious climate plans that focus on green energy. It's interesting that Biden chose the word revolution instead of ambitious. People who are less comfortable with this would call them extreme, expensive. Even socialism, if you're going back to Green New Deal territory.
Yeah,
so
one of the first big flashpoints in this primary season is going to be interesting to see if they actually pull off a climate change debate, as a number of the candidates have been talking about. Avery Harper, it's great to see you on your briefing room debut. Know you'll be out on the trail. Great to meet you. Stephanie Ebbs, always fun to have you here. Thank you for that. Thank you for watching us on this Monday here in the briefing room. We're here every day, 3:30 Eastern Time. Download the ABC News app for the latest on all these stories. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. See you back here tomorrow.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.